Thank you so much for tuning in live for this yet another insightful session of VWO webinars. As always, my name is Vipul, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager at VWO, a full funnel experimentation platform. I'm really stoked to introduce our expert speaker tonight. And of course, a lot of you guys would already know him, Mr. Chris Gibbins. He is the Chief Experience Officer at Creative CX, a highly technical experimentation consultancy, as going by the LinkedIn page. So feel free to reach out to them if you need any help regarding experimentation. Hi, Chris. Happy to have you on stage today. I hope you're feeling good.
Good intro. It's really great to be here. Really excited to be here today, talking about this subject, which is very close to my heart. How user research can really help you drive your experimentation program forward. So it is really that superpower behind experimentation. So yeah, I'm really excited to show you a few examples today and talk through a few points.
Awesome. I myself am going to be a very keen audience tonight and will be taking down points from the presentation. I've seen the entire presentation, guys. So it's going to be really insightful, and I really mean it, and you'll see it once we progress into the presentation. But before I just jump off the stage and let Chris hold the mic, just wanted to share one thing, that this, we really want this session to be interactive, away from the mundane, by unidirectional webinars that you guys might be experiencing at other places. But if you have any questions to ask Chris, if you have any observations, any opinion, right, just feel free to drop in your point in the questions box that you see in your on your control panel. Go to webinars control panel rather, and I'll be happy to unmute you, right? And you can speak out your heart. You can ask your questions with more context to Chris. You can just let your observation be known to everybody else in the audience today. And yeah, let's make it interactive. Let's make it a bi-directional kind of a dialogue. So yeah, looking forward to getting your question, to reading your questions, having your participation. Yeah, with that, Chris, the stage is all yours.
Great, yes, and yeah, if there's anything you're not too clear on or anything you need a bit of explanation around, also just type that into the box, and then we can address that as we go through. I wanted to start with a quick thing about us. We're an experimentation consultancy based in London, England, and that is our primary focus. But to do great experimentation, and actually it's probably worth me just highlighting what we mean by experimentation. Experimentation is the broad title that covers all our optimization work, our personalization work, and also our product experimentation when it comes to like server side and feature flagging and all that really great stuff. But these are the three things we do at our company. The first thing actually is we spend a lot of time understanding customers, the products and services, and we do this through user research, which I'm going to talk about today quite a bit. The second, of course, is the core thing: optimization, personalization, innovation. But the third thing, actually, which we've been doing a lot of recently, is scale. And this is all about helping the clients we work with to scale their own practices of experimentation. So we do a lot of training, as you can see here, our CTO giving some training to one of our client teams. But we also help build centers of excellence, which is a really big thing now in the experimentation world, helping teams to build this experimentation center of excellence, and a lot of technical enablement as well. We were the first consultancy really in the UK to help people to really get hold of server-side experimentation, and we've since onboarded many clients with all the kind of highly technical skills around server-side. So that's us. We're lucky to work with a whole range of different clients in different sectors, from retail, from travel, from finance, which is great. And I suppose the last thing really is just that experimentation is really growing really fast at the moment, as you can see from our client list, but also just from, I think companies are finally realizing the real value of experimentation, the value it brings, which is really exciting. So for example, the value it brings when you're driving incremental and measurable growth, those kind of optimization type of areas. The whole thing around eliminating guesswork and making better decisions. Avoid, and the slightly newer thing really is a realization that experimentation helps you to avoid rolling out harmful changes. In the past, with optimization, you've had these amazing kind of CRO optimization teams in a company working in a little team over here, and yet over there in the other part of the company, there are product teams releasing massive great features, huge redesigns of parts of the website, but without A/B testing them. So basically, taking huge risks. But recently, people have started to realize that that's a bad thing to do. So therefore, experimentation can now help them roll out new features and new big parts of the website in a much safer way. And we've been helping to do that. The other part, which is really exciting actually, is thinking about experimentation as a safety net for adventurous ideas and innovation. If you didn't have A/B testing, for example, you have to play it pretty safe. You have to make really small changes, and you can never really be adventurous. And that's an exciting part of experimentation. And then a couple more. The other thing that's really good is testing bold ideas early and cost effectively. So rather than, say, conducting a 6-month project before you finally roll out the brand new redesign or navigation system or something like that, and then you find out it doesn't work, using experimentation in a creative way to find out early that through things like painted door and fake door tests, or through just smart use of experimentation to actually maybe release a more minimal version of what you really want to put live. But after 1 month, don't wait 6 months and waste all that resource. And finally, and one of the reasons I got into experimentation in the first place is to be more customer centric. When we experiment, when we put A/B tests out there, when we release our solutions to the world to test at scale, our customers vote with their taps and their clicks on what works best for them. And there's no better way really to find out whether something is truly customer centric than running an A/B test. Okay, so that's the really exciting part, and that's why I think experimentation is growing so fast at the moment, and that's why it's such a joy to be in this world right now and helping clients achieve some amazing things. But one of the things we do, we do a lot of experimentation audits, and I thought I'd put a few of the common themes that we're seeing, which are related to research actually. So a few of the common areas where people can improve at the moment. And then there's a whole bunch here I'll talk through fairly quickly, and then talk a few in a bit more details. So overall, there's a real kind of, there's quite low win rates out there. People are struggling to really kind of find winning solutions. There's a low velocity actually, so where people are just testing maybe a few tests a month, or only testing on a part of the website, and like I said before, they're releasing loads of changes elsewhere which aren't tested. There's an interesting area around playing it too safe and lack of originality and diversity. So that's a real need out there. That's what I see people's, when we look at their, we do these audits and we see their roadmaps and their ideas, quite a few of them, you see the ideas are all very much the same. And they really need to push the boundaries a little bit and look a bit further afield. Or they're often just copying their competitors, so they're too focused on their competitors. And I'm sure some of that relates to you guys as well out there. When you work within an industry, you can sometimes be a bit too, because you're worried about your competition, you want to be better than them. You're always watching them. And a lot of the time, it's much better to actually look elsewhere, look outside of your sector. And then the other thing is experimentation teams disconnected from research teams. So you get a lot of experimentation teams, and it's more on the quant side, and they're very, very good at the analysis and the data side. But they miss that research, which I'm going to talk about today. And it's often because they have an amazing research team, but sometimes they don't even know the names of who's on that research team. It's that disconnected. A few more things. There's a real lack of evidence out there. There's some confirmation bias, which I go into in a bit. And there's also the poor problem statements. We see a lot of problem statements where people have them, which are just conversion rates are too low from this page. It's not really a customer problem that conversion rates are too low. And it's not that helpful either. And it leads to a kind of weak hypothesis, which is the other problem, which is, for example, by making this button sticky, we will increase conversion rates. And again, that's a bit of a weak, it doesn't really, it's not solving a problem that they've uncovered at all through research. There's not a problem. It's not like because of poor visibility, we're making it more prominent or something. And the poor visibility was uncovered through research, so it's real evidence. There's none of that going on here. And the last thing is there's a lot of harking going on in A/B test results as well, which I'll talk about in a second. So those are the general theme. And a lot of these on here are related to just a lack of research, a lack of evidence leading to the ideas. The ideas are just coming from nowhere, from thin air as such, without that evidence. Okay, I hope that all makes sense as an intro. I've kind of flown through it quite a lot, but obviously let me know if there's any questions. Now, does anyone out there know what harking is? And then this is the first question for you guys. So those who know, do you want to type into the questions box if you know the answer to this, what harking means? See if you can do it without Googling it. So there's also a chance to make sure the questions box is working. Okay, anybody want to have a go?
So we do have two inputs.
Great.
One from Mike and one from Emma Travis. Hi, Emma. So Mike says hypothesizing after the results are known. And Emma is saying hypo after results with a question mark.
Yeah, they're both right. Well done, guys. Hi, Emma. So yeah, absolutely. So it's all about the
a third answer just rolled in. Weighing too much personal opinion in the results. Sarah Kennemore. Sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly, Sarah. But yeah, that's what she says. Weighing too much personal opinion in the results.
Yeah, which is actually what it kind of means, but not specifically. So actually, it means hypothesizing after results are known, and this is something we see everywhere. And it's where people, once they see the results, they start almost changing what the original hypothesis was to fit in what they now know. And it's kind of bad practice, but it happens all the time. And yes, instead of being, so when you look at the final results, you're not really looking at what you tested then. So it's kind of a human bias. It's kind of, it comes from this willingness to always find a winner, really, to always be right in what you're doing, and some teams aren't so comfortable with getting it wrong sometimes, which is the whole nature of experimentation, and that's where this comes from. And then the second thing I wanted to bring out, I'm just going to bring out three things, is a really interesting thing we see a lot actually. And this is what I'm calling confirmation bias within problem statements. And it happens when you get a team who's very much kind of has a fantastic A/B test idea, they think, and it's just maybe come from a competitor or just something they think would be cool to do. The next thing that happens is that they realize that actually, oh yes, we need to run our experimentation properly. So now we need a problem statement. And then what they do is, after they've got the idea, it's only then do they go and hunt for some supporting data to ignore their to support their great idea, ignoring everything else. And this happens all the time, and especially when there is no kind of discovery research where the ideas are coming from in the first place. And I think this diagram, which comes from the confirmation bias, is a really good way of looking at this. So they have their cool A/B test idea on the right, all the facts and evidence are on the left, but the only bits of data they look at are the bits related to their cool idea. And they ignore all the other evidence. And this is a really good example, or really bad example, of confirmation bias, which we see all the time in problem statements. And it's a tricky one, because you could say, look, we got data, we got evidence behind these ideas. We've been into the analytics or the behavioral analytics tool, and we found some relevant heat maps and data related to this idea. The problem is you're only looking for data to back up the idea you're doing, and that's the problem. But if you turn things on their head and everything was coming from discovery research or continual discovery research, which you're carrying out, then it's a different story. The ideas are stemming from there. So naturally, you will pick the ideas with good evidence behind them. So I thought that was a good one to bring up, and I hope that makes sense to everybody. And then the other thing is around low success and win rates. And this is a problem, but it is a problem in one, but it also depends on where you're at in terms of maturity. So if you're on a very unoptimized website, then it's quite easy to get a lot of winners and you can get a very high success rate. If you're on a very optimized website, then obviously it's harder to find. You have to work harder to get those winning solutions and to find them. You need to do a lot more research and a lot more effort and test several variations, etc. But these are a few data just widely available out there. Our win rate here, I'm not just bragging, is about 40%, which is about kind of average for agencies and consultancies. Of course, remembering that some of our clients bring us in because they haven't done a lot of optimization yet. So therefore, we can get really high win rates at the start. But also these days, the interesting thing is we have some clients where we're managing and we're helping them to build a center of excellence, and we're helping all their product teams across the whole organization to experiment, to run A/B tests. Then naturally the win rate gets lower and lower as more people start testing everything. And you kind of think that's a bad thing, but actually it's a good thing, because all those features they would have rolled out originally are now being A/B tested. So actually we're saving them from rolling out harmful experiences. So yeah, finding solutions that are significantly better than the control is hard. And the other thing is, the other realization is that we're pretty rubbish at predicting human behavior. And for any of you out there who's really into experimentation, as I'm sure a lot of you are, of course, that's why we do it, isn't it? You have to, when you realize human behavior is hard to predict, when you realize a lot of those ideas that you thought were no-brainers aren't, then it inspires you around this whole concept of experimentation. It's why you need to test everything, but also it's why you need to work harder at coming up with the ideas. So one of the key things and themes for today is, how do teams increase the odds of finding more winning solutions? And there are a few levers that you can pull to improve this. First is the quantity of ideas. And I've used an analogy here around kissing more frogs to find more winners. I'm not sure if everybody knows this analogy, but it's about kissing more frogs to obviously kiss enough frogs to find the prince. So therefore you can, if you find your ways to just improve the quantity of ideas, and this might be from testing everywhere, not just testing one little journey of the web or the funnel, test everywhere. Test your app too, test your devices, start A/B testing in more than one place. The next thing is, this is a really important one, is moving from A/B to ABN. And what I mean is, there are so many teams out there just testing one variation against the control. And there's a lot of evidence around here that actually doing ABN tests, A, B, C, D, E tests, testing testing 2 or 3 or 4 variations significantly increases the chance of finding winning solutions. Effectively, you're just testing more ideas and more executions and solutions to a problem. And then the third one is democratize experimentation. I know this is quite an overused term these days, but this is about allowing other people to test, not just a small siloed team in your organization. So getting all the product teams testing, get the marketing teams testing, get CRM testing, etc. And that's how you improve you will eventually find some really interesting winning solutions. And then the last thing is reducing the cost of an experiment. So if you reduce the cost, then it through maybe automating some of the analysis, by making it easier to build tests, by building extensions for different teams, this can all improve the velocity. Okay, hope you're all with me there. And this is where user research comes in again. And in our experience, it's a brilliant way to drive more ideas within your organization. It's the serendipity effect of research. It's the surprises that you get when you actually observe users through usability testing, through interviews, for example. You always get surprises, which then when you ideate, which is the right picture, from all that really rich findings from real people using your products and services, it's the perfect inspiration for generating a ton more ideas, which again leads to more success of finding winning ideas. It also helps your teams to build empathy with the end user and to keep everybody user-centric. And this is just an example of an opportunity audit from a research we do with a client, just to show you how many ideas come from just one lot of research. There are 105 findings and problem statements from here, and we ended up with 61 A/B test ideas to test, 5 personalization ideas, 2 ideas that can have led to larger initiatives, and a ton of fixes as well. And again, this comes from this discovery research we carry out. Okay, but velocity is important, but it only gets you so far. I mean, the next 2, which are very research related again, they help you improve the quality of your A/B tests, problem understanding and quality of execution. And for this, I use this graph where I've pasted all the lovely frogs on again. Remember the frogs? And remember before, we're trying to create as many ideas as possible, as many frogs on here as possible. But there are 2 very important factors that determine whether a solution is going to be better than the status quo, whether what's there at the moment. The first one is your level of problem understanding. How well do you understand the problem you're solving? From no idea at all to complete understanding, like I completely understand the problem. And if you completely understand the problem, it makes it much easier to solve a problem. If you have no idea at all, you are just guessing. You're going to take you 100 goes before you figure out a better solution. The second thing is the quality of execution. And this ranges from poorly designed buggy code. This could be in the feature you're building, or it could be actually the A/B test that you're coding, all the way to high quality design, usability, and code. And the important thing with this is you can have an amazing design, which is the far right side. You could think, oh, this is like the Ferrari. No, this is amazing. But on these 3 occasions, you didn't have enough understanding of the problem. You carry out your research. So therefore, that's the reason that they weren't in that top red area. They weren't winners because you didn't have enough problem understanding. And the same is true with the top area. So these 5 here, actually, you really had a fantastic understanding of the problem that you were solving. But this is almost more frustrating somehow, actually, that you have a great idea, you've done your research, you know what's going on here, but it falls over at the end because you introduced another usability issue in the variations, or it wasn't coded very well, or there was a performance issue and you had a huge like flicker or hook, and therefore it had this animation effect, which wasn't a depiction of what you were truly after. So what we need to do is we need to use the research and analysis to truly understand the problem. And the more effort you put in that area, the more chance of getting winning variations. But at the same time, you need to always try to improve the quality of execution as well, from the UX design, quality of coding, ensuring there's no flicker, but also the data quality of experiments and experiment trustworthiness. Again, if you fall over on how you build your experiment, again, you won't notice or uncover that winning solution. So I hope that makes sense. And I wanted to look in more detail at problem understanding, because this is absolutely key to where the research comes in. And the problem understanding and all this discovery research, which I've mentioned quite a few times, the reason why you do this is that the objectives are to uncover opportunities for improvement. They're there to uncover pain points, usability issues, confusion, unmet needs, expectations, priorities, and also the objections and distrust and anxieties which come up a lot. And another thing is just the interesting user behaviors and workarounds. Because sometimes when we see these behaviors in, say, usability testing on the right, when we see people copy information into a spreadsheet sometimes because the journey isn't repeating what they've got in their basket, for example, and some really, which lead to really innovative solutions. But unless you are watching and observing human behavior, you wouldn't uncover these things. Also, a big thing at the moment is a lack of trust people have. And they get, as soon as the business's trust is lost, it affects the whole rest of the journey. But again, research is the only real way to uncover those things. Second thing is to quantify the extent of the opportunities as to how many people are affected by this issue, which comes from quant research and analytics, and also which audiences are affected. Okay, so that's all the reasons why we do this stuff. And then I wanted to just talk, and this is almost a leave behind as well, the most effective research techniques in our experience are usability testing, which is really underused, but moderated, not remote. Remote's moderated as opposed to unmoderated is so much more valuable. I know it's a bit more difficult to do, but the value you get from it is massively increases. User interviews, we do a lot of jobs to be done interviews, especially when exploring new business opportunities and new products for a client. Post-purchase surveys are good, as long as they're kind of in the moment. That way work really well. And the classic is the what nearly stopped you from buying today. And also at the moment, a lot of call center insights. If you can get your hands on the call center insights, that's an amazing resource for qualitative insight to lead to some amazing ideas. And the last one is sales team interviews, especially when you're in retail. If you can talk to the sales team who are selling to the end customer, it's amazing what they know. Often they'll know things like the common objections that the customer has to buying this thing that you're selling, and then you can put counter objections on the website, which is a great idea for A/B tests. But it's really important to have that qual and quant balance and focus on the behavior analytics, the context squares, full stories, hot jars, quantum metrics, and also the VWO insights, all that lovely stuff. But because it can help you to quantify, for example, how many people are having this issue at the moment, from which we saw in the user research. Also, at the end, there's jobs to be done surveys as well, which is all about quantifying the importance of the needs we uncover. So these are the techniques which we're having most success with, and again, they lead to amazingly rich and powerful ideas. So the most powerful combination come from a mix of qual and quant. They help you build really strong problem statements, evidence-based, how might we's, which is great inspiration for ideation and more creative ideation sessions. And ultimately, they lead to powerful data-driven hypotheses for tests with several variations, because you've got all this inspiration. You're not struggling to come up with more than one variation now. And lead to higher overall success rates. Okay, I've been through a lot, so I thought to really kind of so it sinks in really well. I thought I would leave you a client example, which is a great example of the serendipitous nature of user research, and also a perfect example of problem understanding. And this is the login step. This is all about the login step. So I'm going to, first off, if you can look at this website at the moment, it's a travel website for booking accommodation. And it's just the login step, when you've added a room, and this is the next step before you go on to book that room. Actually, from an expert point of view, it's got prominent CTAs, reasonably prominent. It's got clearish booking summary. It's got secure checkout padlock, which is a like tick, that's got that feature. It's got a guest checkout option, which is another kind of best practice feature. And it's got a fairly low drop off, continue to the next step, 73%. It's quite good, really. There's quite a few going back to the basket, which is a step before. And then there's got a low exit rate. Okay, so if you were looking at that, it seems kind of okay. And actually, what I'd like you to do is a question for all of you guys. What do you think was the most important problem opportunity at this step? So we've got a bit of research coming up, and I'll show you that finding in a minute. But it would be great to hear from you if anybody can look at this page and guess what would be the most impactful thing. What's the biggest opportunity? Anybody want to guess?
Chris, are you able to view the questions box?
I can't actually. No, I can see the questions here, but I show. Let's have a look. No, they're not showing up on mine, so I'm relying on you.
Okay, no problem. I'll read them out. We do have one input from Alex Taylor. He's saying being able to register with a new account.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's good. Actually, that's an interesting one. It's related. Let me show you what happened in reality. So when we worked with this client, we actually carried out an opportunity audit, and we did usability testing on the whole journey with the target audience to uncover opportunities, and then we would start from there. So let me show you this clip. And hopefully you can all hear this. So this is with
also. Yeah, we just before you play the video, there's one more input that came in from Udit, eliminating the login step.
Ah, yes, yeah, that's a good one. Okay, all right, cool. So they're close, but this is going to reveal what the exact problem was, and this is a clip from this guy Mark. This is not a real picture actually. This is just, but this is a real guy, real target audience, who hadn't done any user research before, but he was perfect for this. So real, and I'll let him talk about the step.
Ah, right. Right, you do, right. So you have to log in or check in as, well, I don't have an account. You don't have an account to stay with us. It's easier to set one up later. Right, what does that mean then? Log in, check out as a guest. Well, if I don't have an account, how do I log in? And I can't check out as a guest yet. Right, okay, so you have to make an account. Oh, you know what? That'll be a pain in the ass for me. I'm sorry, we're dealing with that.
So I hope that was interesting. Could you all hear it all right? So that's the first part. And then when this happened, I remember my UX team, and they were thinking, that's really interesting. We didn't expect it at all. So it seems like he's a little bit confused by the login or the checkout area. And then later on, there's this other clip where it really reveals itself. This is like the aha moment.
I wouldn't log in. In terms of checkout as a guest, just don't like. I think that what's unusual is the checkout. Why is it not check in?
Right. Okay. So
check out. I want to check in as a guest owner. Not my checkout's at the end of your stay.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So it's really that way.
It's the checkout, isn't it? I mean, this is the start of the process. I'm trying to check in.
So I hope that was revealing to you all. The real, I mean, it was a surprise. It's a perfect example of a real surprise from user research. And checkout as a guest, really not the best terminology for a hotel website. And it's this confusion between checkout or check-in, because in the real world, checking in is going into the hotel and getting into your room. The other thing is the word guest as well, actually. And being because you're a guest of a hotel, and this is forcing people to go down the login route as an alternative, but they're not registered yet. So yeah, it caused a lot of confusion. But the interesting thing is, if you were just going only by best practices, you'd be looking at some amazing sites like the Baymard Institute, which talks all about how important it is to have guest checkout on retail sites, but also in travel as well. We talk about this guest checkout as being a massive recommendation. Everybody should do it. So you would be none the wiser unless you'd carried out proper user research, and then you based your experiment ideas on that. And that's why this is so important. And this is a really good example. What this allowed us to do was we identified a really clear problem where we could write a really good customer problem statement, and we had a powerful hypothesis. And then off the back of that and the ideation sessions, we constructed 4 variations plus the control for this experiment. And the fantastic thing was we saw variation 4, which was amongst a whole other things which we experimented with 1, and was significantly better than the control. So it's a really good story. And yes, you're right, we did actually eliminate the login step in the end, but we also tested with changing the language, which also worked as well. So yeah, this was the result, and it's great. Well, actually, when you a really important point is when you start to catalog all your experiment ideas, and when you start to do enough experiments like we have over the years, you start to see the ones which are based on research versus the ones which are based on, say, a client idea or the Hippo's idea have a much higher success rate. And again, that goes back to the problem understanding and execution diagram I showed you. So that's it. I wanted to leave you with a few practical tips before I think we're just about out of time now. Because one of the things I mentioned earlier was about the silos. It's really important in bigger organizations to effectively make friends with your research teams. We keep on coming across experimentation and research teams who don't even know each other's names. They're so separated. But to do this, you really got to open your hands out to the research teams. And one of the tricks we found works really well is to give them credit for the winners that come from research, make them feel part of the process. And then, like I said before, keep track of where the ideas come from in your A/B tests. So when you're looking at your program metrics, start to see what the percentage of win rates are for tests that come from research and data versus from company ideas, for example. The other really important thing is to start scheduling user research by default. So scheduling monthly usability testing sessions before you even know what journey you'll be testing. Try to enshrine that kind of that customer-centric approach to everything that you do. And then when it comes nearer the time, you can think, okay, we really want to test out this journey at the moment, and you can put that forward. Like I said before, you get so much more value from moderated research, and get the experimenters and the optimizers to observe and note-take in that. So even when a research team is conducting this type of real face-to-face customer research, make sure everyone else is involved. Make sure you have evidence-based problem statements, like I mentioned before. Avoid that confirmation bias analysis. And the last one is, I mean, I understand that some of you will be in small organizations and you don't have the resources, don't have a separate research team or specialists in this area. I mean, I would advise you actually learning, going out there, reading books like Don't Make Me Think, and learn how to run and moderate usability testing sessions yourself. I really think that's a good idea as well. But that's it, and we'll be distributing everything afterwards, but it would be great if you have any questions, and then I'll be happy to answer them.
Awesome. Cool. That was really insightful. I hope the audio was coming through well for you guys as well in the audience. I hope you were able to understand what the call was all about, and what the person who was taking the test was speaking. But yeah, this has been great. And if you have any questions, any observations from your own, usability researches or user research in general, I think I will have a few minutes to, have you on stage and share them. By the way, a question rolled in. The question is from Heidi.
Hey, Heidi.
Heidi, would you like to, would you like me to switch on your mic so that you can ask your question with more context? Let me just go ahead and unmute you maybe. Okay, no problem. So Heidi's question is, how many users would you advise in a moderated test, Chris?
Well, at a minimum, we would advise 5 participants per device. Normally with our clients, these days, we're testing on mobile and desktop, so we do 2 days, 5 a day. That's what we recommend. But it's a bit hard to go under that, really. But that's a really good number. Of course, if you have tons of different audience types, like really different demographics, then you'll need to do 5 with each of those demographics. But normally that will get you started, and you'll discover loads of amazing stuff.
Yeah, just adding my own experience on top of that. From several years back, I was doing this research, not a usability testing research, but more of understanding, what our customers really want from the product. The biggest challenge, of course, besides running this research survey and all, was acquiring the people, the participants. So I used to like cold email a lot of people from I got a list of users of a product from our Salesforce, and I was cold emailing them, and a lot of negative replies did come in, asking me to just stop emailing them. but I did not. And I was able to interview like 14-15 people at that time. And it was really, really fun, and it was really, really insightful as well. So it definitely works. I have one more question. Please go ahead.
I'm just going to say on the recruitment, we use professional recruitment company that goes and free finds the right people. Of course, that costs a bit more money because they have to pay the fees of this. We pay fees of another company, but also quite large incentives. But if it's a big business, they can afford it. And you just have to be creative if you don't have the budget. So maybe use adverts and social media to try and get users in other ways. Or just what we used to do in the olden days was actually walk into a cafe and offer to buy somebody a coffee, and then run an ad hoc usability testing session just on their device there and then. And again, it was great for 10 minutes.
Nice. So the next question is from Jamie. Jamie, would you like me to switch on your mic and ask your question directly to Chris? Oh, okay, cool. Let me just unmute you from my side. And I've unmuted you. You can unmute from your side and ask your question.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Jamie.
Good. My question was just around, in your experience, which product or platform is best for moderated testing, other than the coffee shop approach?
Well, we actually use Lookback, and that's the software we use, and it works pretty well. There's always so we used to do everything in our labs in London, and then COVID came, and then that forced us to do everything remote. And actually, at the time, we were thinking, oh my god, it's going to like ruin all our usability testing. But in fact, tools like Lookback made it possible to do remote testing and still keep it moderated. There are some challenges with people having to download something onto their device and get it working. But overall, the pros outweigh the cons of it. And on the good thing is you still get to see the picture-in-picture. You can see their face, like on the bottom left here, and you see their screen as well. But there are just a few issues on iOS. Sometimes you can't see their face, etc. I think the best thing with it, Jimmy, is that anybody can then log in and watch and write notes, which are the right-hand side of that small screen. So you can write notes and comments and things without the user knowing. So actually you can get your whole team involved watching everything. And then the notes are timestamped. So when you want to create a video, you can just easily create that clip of where you took that note or that observation. So it's a really good tool.
Thank you. And do you have any top tips for good screener questions, just to make sure you get the right type of users within the moderated tests?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the one that's, I mean, actually, we want people who haven't done much research before. So in actual fact, you have to ask it in the right way. But we don't want people who have done research more frequently than in the last 6 months or 3 months. So that's an important one. You have to watch. That's sometimes the problems with the panels out there. There are tools that make it really, really easy to run more unmoderated tests, but the panels have users who are just doing tests all the time, and you can start to see it. Actually, you can start to think, that they're almost ready with their opinions. They're almost saying, oh yeah, that color shouldn't be blue anymore. And of course, we don't really care what they think in terms of design. We just want them to do that journey as if they're a real shopper and just go ahead and find a hotel or buy that dress, for example. The other one, which is really good, is don't recruit people who have used that product or website before. So if you're a retailer, for example, make sure there's an open question where they will say where they've shopped and where they haven't, and then you can make sure that they're not a regular customer, because a regular customer of your website will have already learned all the problems with it, so they're not the best person to use. But also then you can put a list of like competitors, and you can recruit the ones which use your competitors, and then they're a perfect target audience. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, makes
Awesome.
sense. Thanks a lot. That's really useful.
Thank you so much, Jimmy, for your question. In the interest of time, I'll just take two more questions. A few more have rolled in. I'll just have one question from Udit. Let me just unmute you. And you're now unmuted from my side, Udit. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, yeah. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, I
Yes,
can.
yes,
Yeah. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, Chris. Thank you for the session. I had this question that, when you're experimenting for a long time, you've seen, a lot of things that work, that don't work, and then you, form some. So in an experimentation culture, you form this notion that, okay, this is going to work, this is not going to work. Maybe I should add a pop-up here, or I should remove this. So how to prevent, your team to reach that saturation that, okay, yeah, let's do this and let's get this client over with, let's not do anything further. So how to eliminate this generalization or saturation from our teams per se?
No, that's really good. That's almost like it's, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's almost like they're solutionizing first, aren't they? You can kind of get this. Some people will all jump to the solution, and it's just a generic solution. It's like make everything sticky, which seems to be a trend at the moment. Make the button sticky, make the sticky, and all that. Very jumping, again, it's jumping to solution. I think that the trick is, as soon as you get people to think about what the problem is they're trying to solve, it gets them away from that way of thinking. It gets them from just jumping too quickly to an A/B test. And that's the power of research, I'd say. So there are things like making sure everybody actually has in their test plan a customer problem, and also making sure it is based on real evidence, not just something made up or this kind of, we'll just quickly go and find some data to back up my idea type of thing, which I mentioned earlier. Those type of methods can help people get away from that kind of solutionizing way and culture.
Right. That's what Chris mentioned in his presentation as well. Eliminating any kind of bias that builds in. Once you've started seeing a lot of successes or even failures, you build an idea and you get biased towards what's building in your head, and you just want to jump onto that hint whenever you get a chance. So that's tough, but that's doable. So the next question, the last question for tonight, I'll take from Alex Taylor. Alex, let me just unmute you, and I've done so from my end. You can unmute and ask a question.
Hey, Alex.
Or maybe I'll just...
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's crystal clear.
We can hear you now.
Oh, cool. All right, brilliant. Sorry about that. Hi, Chris. So quick question. Just which would be your preferred method of user research if you want to leverage sort of volumes of feedback over quality of feedback? Because obviously surveys, for instance, you can get volume, but interviews you can get probably greater insight.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's always best to do both. That's why I go on a lot about the qual and the quant. But it's good to get really close to the customer, to get the rich insights, to understand why things are going on, as well as observing their natural behavior. So that's why usability testing is so good. Unfortunately, a lot of teams only use it for assessing a prototype, not almost assessing the idea or validating the idea they already have. What they don't use it enough for is more this discovery research, for uncovering opportunities in the first place. So that's really good. But you also need to have the quant side. So you need to then use tools like analytics or behavioral analytics to help you to find out the scale of that problem. So for example, or just the number of users which are going through the problematic journey, and then that will give you a really idea as to whether you should focus on that in your roadmap or not. So it's that combination, but definitely really face-to-face research with target audience, and you don't need to do many. Like I said, you can just do 2 or 3 days is plenty.
I hope that answers your question, Alex. And I see there are a few more questions. So I'll send your questions to Chris directly, and he'll be able to he'll answer them for you at his leisure. But you can also reach out to Chris on LinkedIn. Of course, you can find him easily on LinkedIn. Just type in the name Chris Gibbins, and you'll find him, and you can catch hold of him and ask all your pressing questions regarding experimentation, CRO, or anything. So feel free to do that, or you can reach out to us as well, and we'll be happy to help you out with any experimentation or CRO questions as well. With that, Chris, thank you so much. It was really, really insightful. It was really interesting today. I would also love to thank our attendees for asking really encouraging questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in live at this hour, and have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, everybody. Speak to you soon, hopefully.